awaydaysbeer.com. Proud to partner with Talking Town. For only $14.99, grab your ITFC Legends Pack from The Beat to Hoppy Robson to Brazil's Best and Pablo's Pal. Whatever you need, whatever you want. ITFC Legends Pack, $14.99 at awaydaysbeer.com. Grab it today. MassCreations are proud partners of Talking Town. High quality web and software development. From web development to SEO and everything in between, make your vision a reality with MassCreations. Call 07896 904 571 or visit masscreations.co.uk or email info@masscreations.co.uk. MassCreations, proud partners of Talking Town. Don't forget, tell them you came from Talking Town to get 10% off. Best Burger in Stowmarket, proud partners of Talking Town. Call 01449 680 058 to book a table today. Hello again, my friends, and you are my friends, and welcome back to Talking Town. And this time we are bringing you a special Talking Town talks to Ipswich Town ex-Blue Tommy Smith. According to Wikipedia, 247 appearances. Cruncher's shaking his head. Cruncher,
wrong.
Wikipedia being wrong. You tell me the sky is blue.
Go to Wikipedia. Go to Statman.
Oh, I don't want to make him big-headed.
267 appearances for Town.
They've robbed him. Wow. How many goals then, Crunch?
23, which for a centre-half is that's decent. And some good goals in there as well.
Some cracking goals. I had some goals lined up, but YouTube said, nah, you don't own that rights to that property, you can't use it. So sadly, we won't be seeing those goals today. But which is your favourite Tommy Smith goal? Because I've been through them this morning and last night, and there's some crackers in there. Crackers.
Yeah, probably the one at Norwich. Norwich was 6 years ago today.
Yes,
6 years ago on this day.
It is.
But I think I know what your favourite goal is, and I'll probably agree. The Brentford Boxing Day 4-2 when he turned into Cristiano Ronaldo, chopped in and then banged it in the top corner.
From where I was sat, that ball hit the top corner right in front of me, and it was just like, Tommy Smith, think about it, son. That was an awesome goal.
Unbelievable when you think, innit? 6 years ago, how well things have gone sort of downhill since then.
The goal was okay. His movement in the box was like Daryl Murphy-esque, but it's the passion afterwards where he sprints the length of the pitch like it's Usain Bolt to just take it. And sadly, we didn't go on to finish the job. But let's get a few comments before we bring in our pros. ITFC Tweedy, absolutely buzzing for this. Tommy's been my favourite player since I went to my first Town game. Colin Plum, good afternoon, everyone, especially Rich and the Guv. They were expecting me, but guess what? The GOAT is in the building.
He's got a pass, he told me.
Did he?
He's round his sons. He's round Andrews having his Sunday dinner. He's had it already.
We've had 3 lockdowns and he's binned off his family.
Do you want the menu? What he's had today?
Go on then. What's the menu?
He has had roast chicken, massive Yorkshire pudding with all the trimmings, and then a raspberry roulade, which he sent me a picture earlier this morning at 11 o'clock and made me draw because it looks absolutely delicious.
That's not too bad. I've got slow cooked turkey. After Anthony Steele, afternoon all. Tommy Smith, World Cup player. Yeah, absolutely. I remember watching him in the World Cup. It was interesting. Right, let's bring in our resident Talking Town pro. She is Mrs. Worldwide, Kate Riley. Hello.
Hello. Evening from Singapore. We've kind of gone into lockdown light over the weekend, so I'm using this pod to lift my spirits.
We do try our best. And, of course, we were talking about Tommy Smith's goals there. have you got a particular Tommy Smith goal moment that stands out to you?
Amazing goal, not the right result. Scissor kick against QPR.
Great.
Yes.
Can I just rewind there when Kate, you said about spirits and people were giving Kate a little bit of stick when she'd done the video for that she had been drinking, but I think you hadn't, had you?
She was just drunk.
Dream of a team of Tommy Smiths.
She wasn't drunk on spirits. She was drunk on Tommy Smith coming on this show, the excitement of it. She was taking it in. She was soaking it up. And,
Look, have you got many other people to sing and dance for you? No. So the fact that I had the cojones to come on and do that.
Matt Phillips has apparently got a good voice. I've not heard it yet.
Kate, what are you doing next Saturday? Because I've entered you in a certain competition that runs across Europe next week. Make sure you're free. You are a UK entry. So the Eurovision Song Contest.
God help the United Kingdom.
Behave. If the dancing alone was worth one, you know.
What's the program that comes on BBC, Martin? That comes on a Saturday night where they have to guess if they're a good or bad singer.
I Can See Your Voice.
Good program. Like it.
Great program. No, Kate, honestly, it was great. We loved it. I could see a handbag in front of you as you dance around it, you know, in like fire and ice and whatnot. EJ Norris, I think your show is really good. I love it. Thank you very much for keeping it up. No problem at all. Right. Shall we bring in our guest and get proceedings going? As always, we will, of course, run through the career of Tommy Smith, and there will be a live link for you guys to get involved.
A live chat to him because we got a decent centre half on today. I don't know if you can see that. It's Butcher's bandage I've got today.
Oh, very nice. But there will be a live link for you to ask Tommy, you know, your own questions or relive some stories as we have done here early of a great player. As George has already asked, look, link. Good to see George is safe and well. So, Crunch, introduce him because obviously my information from Wikipedia is wrong. So you can go first. Yeah,
Tommy Smith, 267 appearances for Town. 40th on the all-time list. He was a player of the year in 2012-13. Also, World Cup for New Zealand, Olympics in 2012 for New Zealand, Confederations Cup for New Zealand. He's done it all, and he's a great bloke as well.
Absolutely. Tommy Smith, welcome in.
Thank you for having me on.
Nice.
There he is.
Pleasure. Kate's dancing that obviously swayed you to come on. Did you see the video she'd made for you?
I did see it, and I saw a lot of the replies as well. So, yeah, it was interesting to say the least. But A star for effort. A star for
effort. Is that about it?
Have you? A star. Bless her. Look, okay. You've had worse in your career. Don't worry. Tommy, it's great to be here with you. Crunch, go first. I can't actually look at Kate without laughing.
So, Tom, I thought Kate was the pro here. Yeah, Tommy, how you doing? You all right?
Yeah, very well, thanks.
So you're off season now. You finished with Colchester. I see you've got. Have you got a new manager there? First team coach?
He's just been confirmed. So the interim was Hayden Mullins, and he's been given the job full time now. So yeah, looking forward to getting started with him in earnest. And we've got a big turnover of players. So
the last time you messaged me, it was Tommy was hoping that we were both going to make the playoffs, and that was back in December, and it didn't quite go to plan for both of us, did it?
No, I know. I probably cursed us both there. You know, both teams were in good positions at the time, and yeah, like you say, hasn't transpired, but a lot of change at both clubs. Hopefully for the better moving forward, and hopefully this time next year we can both be celebrating promotions.
Hayden Mullins isn't that far off your age, Tommy. Does that make it kind of easier for you? You can relate more to a manager. He's sort of the same generation as you.
Yeah, I mean, he's a top man anyway. You know, he was assistant manager at the beginning of the last season. He's got a lot of experience both playing and coaching. Obviously came through at Watford with his coaching there, and even took charge of the first team on an interim basis at times. So he's got good experience and an ambition and drive to get better, both for himself and for the club. So no, it's an exciting time. And like I said, the overhaul of players, a lot of players have been let go just recently over the last couple of weeks. So it gives him a chance to sort of stamp his authority on the squad and get the right sort of players for him. And we'll see where it takes us.
Have you played against him when you were a player? Did you play against Aidan Mullins?
I'm pretty sure I played against him when he was at Portsmouth, when they were in the Championship. So, yeah, I think I have done. I don't remember it exactly, but I remember a Portsmouth away game. I think we beat them 1-0. I don't know if he played in that game, but he's a top man. Obviously, his playing career speaks for itself. A very good player in his own right, and like you say, he's using those experiences as a player and all the good managers that he's played under to try and go on and kick on in his own managerial career.
Who's he bringing in with him? Because you had Paul Tisdale down there, didn't you, towards the end of the season?
Yeah, we did, and Tiz was brilliant. You know, he brought that league experience from those levels. You know, he's been a very successful manager at those levels, and the little nuances he added really did help us to get over the line from what was a precarious position at one time. So I don't think he'll be coming in as number 2. I think he's got his ambitions to go and be a number 1 elsewhere. So yeah, I don't know who Hayden will bring in. You know, I had a chat with him to congratulate him on the job, but he hasn't made a decision on that one just yet.
Because you were flying, weren't you, Tommy, before Christmas? Were you you were 6th in the league, and then I think, did I see a stat that you'd lost? I don't think you scored a goal in 10 away games.
Yeah, I mean, we only won 1 away game all season, so it was a tough one on the road for us. Obviously, something that we have to look at and get better at. But like you say, it's hard to put your finger on where it did go wrong, and maybe the squad was maybe slightly inexperienced in terms of when the going got tough. We didn't have enough experienced heads within the squad to sort of pull us through the situation.
COVID? Did COVID have an effect this season without any fans?
Oh, it massively has an effect, but obviously it's the same for every team, and it probably does affect players differently. You know, certain players play better with the pressure of a crowd, and certain players probably play better without the crowd there, without that pressure of crowd expectations. So I think that's why you've seen some skewed results all the way through the league. You know, I don't think you see Aston Villa beating Liverpool 7-2 at Anfield with a full crowd in there. So it has thrown up some crazy results, and hopefully we see the back of that with the fans being allowed back in.
It's nice yesterday, wasn't it? I take it you watched the cup final. It was just, even though there's 20,000 there, it was just, and like you see the goal there. That needed a goal, didn't it? Tielemans' goal. You just watch when the fans, you can see it going in there, and you think something like that. And then obviously the VAR. I don't know. Well, we can go there if you want, but I know Martin's not a big fan of it. It sort of needed a crowd, because when you haven't got a crowd there,
Tainted it.
Not for me.
Tainted it.
Offside.
Tainted it. But no, Tommy's right about COVID. I think across sports, and obviously you've been to America. I know last year the NFL most wins by a road team in a long time, because the home advantage, as it were, has been taken away. Mike Baker does ask a question, Tommy. How close did you come to rejoining Town?
Not very. You know, I had talks with Paul Lambert, but he was sort of saying, unless we can get players out, there's no space for you. They already had 4 senior centre halves in the squad, so it was a good chat, you know. But obviously, squad size as it was anyway was a huge squad, and he just said that there is no room. So that was that, really, you know. And then I had to move on from there.
What, when you look back at your time at Town, what sort of what stands out as pivotal moments?
You've got a few moments. Obviously, making your first team debut was a special moment. It was unfortunately, we lost 2-1 to Preston. It was on the first day of the 2008-2009 season, and it was a special moment for myself and my family to see all that hard work from all the years of graft come to fruition in that moment. And then obviously every game is a privilege and an honour, you know, no matter who you're playing for. Every game I know could be my last game in football. You're only ever one injury away from it being your last, and I've learned that. Obviously I've had my fair share of serious injuries that could have potentially ended my career, so I do appreciate every moment I get on a football pitch. And obviously a lot of those moments came in an Ipswich Town shirt, and it was an honour to represent the club. And I felt like, yes, I had my rocky moments with the fans, but I think in the main, you know, the fans helped me get through those sticky patches and ultimately go on to have what I think was a decent career in the shirt.
Absolutely, yeah. And I was gutted to see you go to America. Come out out of the blue. MW does ask, I know we're sort of darting all over the place, this is what we do at Talking Town. Tommy, talk us through your experience in the US. How did you assess the levels at this stage against the English game?
It's really tough to compare because of the way the salary cap works. So obviously you have your really high earners, top players that were probably Premier League level. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have the players on the minimum wage who are more squad fillers. No disrespect to them, they're obviously still, they've got there on merit and they are professional footballers, but the difference in level is much different to when you're in a championship team or now in a League Two team. Most players are of a similar sort of talent and ability level, whereas the scope for it over there was massive. And if you did get injuries and suspensions, it really can hit your team hard. And so that's the biggest difference. But I think if you have strongest 11s from every MLS team, they're probably competing in the championship for me.
Wow. I think that surprised a lot of fans. That surprises myself. Obviously, we're now got an American ownership. We're perhaps getting links with Phoenix Rising. So I know a lot of fans are key to, to know a lot more than perhaps they did do about the American game. Obviously, Luke Chambers was released this week, which is always sad. Been a big 7 for the football club. You've played alongside him for many, many years. Talk us through sort of Chambo, really, from behind the scenes.
I mean, a player that's given his absolute all on and off the pitch for the club, even now he takes in youth team players and looks after them, feeds them at night, gives them housing. So that's how much the club has meant to him over the years, and an absolute, just an all-round good guy who gave his absolute all for the football club. And I don't think anyone can ever accuse anything but that against him. He played with his heart on his sleeve, never left anything out on that pitch. Yes, at times, obviously, the club itself hasn't been successful in that time, but I don't think anyone can fault his attitude and application to trying his absolute best to be successful for Ipswich Town.
Is he on speed, though?
Yeah.
On the golf course. You were on the golf course, Tommy, weren't you, in a week with him?
Yeah, on Monday we had a little round of golf. Obviously, that was the day that he'd found out, so his head was a little bit all over the place with it all.
Did you let him win?
No. Competitive people, you don't just let people win. No.
How many times you said, "Come on, Chamber, look, come on, just up the A12 as a little, as a club, just come on."
I mean, listen, it would be brilliant to play alongside him again. Obviously, the attributes that he brings both on and off the pitch as a leader and as a player on the pitch. So, I mean, it would be great, and I'm sure he's going to have options. He's not going to be struggling for contacts, and other clubs will for sure be showing interest in him. He's still played a lot of games this season, and I'm sure. Well, I know he wants to kick on and carry on playing at as high a level as he possibly can, and we'll see what happens. I think if he does end up down the road with me, then that would be great. But who knows what football brings?
Absolutely. Kate, is your internet back working?
Yeah, it's all good now. What happens is because we're all in lockdown, can't go out, so everyone's on the internet right now.
Okay, well, it's good to have you back. Do you want to say anything to Tommy Smith? Now you're able to speak.
Thank you. Well, now I can hear you clearly. Just wanted to know, you've obviously worked in the States, you've worked under US owners. What can we expect as Town fans now that we have new US owners, both sort of on and off the pitch?
Well, to be honest, as a player, you don't really deal too much with that sort of front office staff as such. So, but what I do know is that Phoenix Rising are a very highly regarded, up-and-coming team. Quite a young club, but very highly regarded and very well run by all regards. So hopefully they bring that same professionalism and quality to their ownership of Ipswich Town and can get the sort of ship sailing back in the right direction.
We mentioned Leicester and obviously their fantastic win yesterday. Do you ever sort of foresee Ipswich doing a Leicester City?
I mean, there's no reason why not with the size of the club, the history of the club. There's no reason why not. Leicester were in a similar position to Ipswich Town not too long ago. So there's no reason why that ascension can't happen. Obviously, it will take a lot of hard work and a lot of time probably as well. It won't happen you're probably not going to get bouncing promotions all the way through the leagues, but it will take time, but hopefully it will happen at some stage because the club deserves it. The fan base definitely deserves it. But it's not a given, it does take a lot of hard work and quality leadership to be able to do that.
Was it hard leaving MLS? Obviously, it has a reputation outside of the States, but when you're in the States, it's obviously very well regarded. Did you have trouble sort of coming back to the UK after playing in that league?
Yes and no. We came back for personal reasons in the end, and it was a strange one because their seasons finish in October, November. So you're without your contract finishes at the end of December, but you're coming into a time where I've then not played football for 2 months, and you're trying to sort of find someone that needs a centre half. Successful teams are happy with their squads. Not so successful teams, you're sort of thinking, do I want to go and be a part of that when I don't know anyone? And it's a tough one. It was a tough one, and it was a strange time because I was very close to a couple of things that fell through at the last minute, and then just keeping your own spirits up. It was a tough time. It was the first time I'd been unemployed, and to keep yourself going. And that's where I have to thank my wife and the support network we have around us for sort of keeping me at it. And then obviously eventually the Sunderland opportunity popped up.
So how does it compare match day experience during a World Cup, Olympics, or playing for Ipswich Town?
I think obviously the World Cup that we played in, the South Africa one, was obviously renowned for the vuvuzelas, and it's something that will live with me forever. The noise. You can try and communicate on the pitch. You couldn't hear each other. It was that loud and noisy and vibrant. And obviously the South Africans are brilliant in that regard. When I've had friends that have played in the South African Premier League over there, and they said they're the same always. Such happy and vibrant fans. So obviously a fantastic experience and one that I will remember forever. But when you've got those days. When you score a goal at Portman Road, whether it be like a winning goal, I was fortunate enough to do on a few occasions. It's, again, the buzz you get. You can't describe the feeling, really. It can't be matched. It's a strange one, and I can never. Like, people ask you, how does it feel? I don't know. I couldn't explain the feeling. It's just like euphoric, and you see the happiness that are on the fans' faces, and it just within yourself, you just feel on top of the world. And yeah, like I say, it's almost indescribable, the feeling that you get.
So you've been a professional from a time when we didn't have social media and we just have the either CFAX or the paper review, and you'd have like Tommy Smith 7. No, I'd say give you a 9 for how you played the day before or the Saturday before. How has it changed from a footballer knowing that people can rate you during the pitch and sort of bombard you with that sort of interaction? How has that changed for your generation?
Well, I mean, social media has its pros and cons. As a player now, you used to give interviews and perhaps journalists could have twisted words, and that would only be the only side of the story that fans would see. But now you can literally voice whatever opinion you want on your own social media platforms, and there's no getting away from it. If you've said it, you've said it, and there's no twisting of words. And so that's a positive in terms of you can get your point across much more clearly. But obviously the cons are the abuse that people get. And, I'd like you say, probably at my time at Ipswich Town, not so much because it wasn't as prevalent, but you see like the comments that are made about Premier League players in the main are the ones that are publicised. But at every level you go through, I know this season a couple of our players have been subject to it as well, and it's just horrible to see. And I think the only way of eradicating that is to have you have to put your passport in to get a profile. An actual verification process of ID is the only way to hold these people responsible, because they can hide behind an anonymous profile and say whatever they want without fear of ever being caught and facing the consequences.
And just for the record, we never twisted your words on BBC Wiki.
No. I wasn't leveling any accusations there, but you just see, obviously, at times you see more.
She was
probably
down
more
at Norwich
high
anyway, Tommy. She was down at Norwich reporting on them.
No, but you see
only when you're away.
No, obviously, more high-profile names have been sort of succumbed to that in the past, where they've tried to give interviews and it's been sort of twisted. And I wasn't leveling any accusations. Sorry.
I thought you meant more high-profile journalists, but you know.
Do you read social media, Tommy? Because you get your players will say, "I don't read the papers, I don't read social media." Do you read comments and that, or do you just try and keep yourself away from it?
If we've won, I'll read it. If we haven't, I don't.
It's probably best.
Yeah,
just like anybody else.
That's the way I deal with it. Yeah.
Just like anybody else. I've got a couple of questions here that are more or less the same in regards to favourite manager that you've played under at Town and why.
It's an easy one in the main, but I first have to give a shout out to Jim Magilton, because he's the manager that gave me my debut and showed so much faith in me. I was only an 18-year-old kid, really. Still probably not quite physically matured, and he showed faith in me and chucked me in when perhaps others wouldn't. So I have to thank him for what he did in sort of projecting me into the first team picture. But I only unfortunately played one game under him until I picked up a bad injury, and then by the time I came back from that injury, Roy Keane was in charge. And but obviously everyone knows who I'm going to say. It's Mick McCarthy. You know, the improvements I feel I made in my game under his tutelage was what made me a stalwart in the team for me. You know, obviously being a centre half in his playing days, I could lean on him for that experience and know-how, and he's what's really got me to the position in my career that I have got to today. Yeah.
What about Mick? You know, really, did he, what side of your game did he really help you with? Do you feel?
Obviously, as a defender, we did a lot of work on our defensive shape, and obviously then within that you video sessions, and he picks things out what you can improve, your little positional sense, just sensing danger in the right situations and scenarios, and then his man management skills alongside all that are probably the best I've ever experienced. You know, it's all well and good being a good coach, but you have to be able to manage a group of players and get the best out of that group of players, whether they're in the team or out of the team. And he was brilliant at that. You know, if players weren't in the team, everyone was still pulling in the right direction. If you weren't, you were sent out the door. You know, he only wanted players that were fighting for that group and common goal. And if you were going through tough times, he'd be there to help you through it. And he'd sit down and watch your clips with you and say, I think you could have done this better, or I think you did this really well. Carry on doing this. And no, brilliant manager. And obviously, again, since he went into Cardiff, he reinvigorated them. And you know, he's a successful manager for a reason.
Yeah, and obviously Terry Connor's famous Friday afternoon finishing sessions became a famous thing. You must have taken part, because your finishing through the Mick McCarthy era is second to none.
Now, see, this is where us defenders looked over in jealousy every Friday morning, because while the strikers and attacking midfielders are doing finishing sessions, we're heading crosses out and putting our bodies on the line. It was obviously what defenders needed, but yeah, we did look on with a bit of jealousy at the strikers doing their finishing sessions and having a great time while we're getting our brain cells knocked out of us.
Going back about the finishing, we had some. Like, you got a few goals, didn't you? Christoph Berrer, he was decent. Luke Chambers, it was. This is what we've sort of lacked this season. I don't know. It's probably we had some good delivery back then, didn't we? Set piece wise.
I'll tell you, you watch Aaron Creswell now in the Premier League. His delivery is unbelievable, and I think the season I scored the most goals, probably the majority of those were from Aaron Creswell's deliveries. So it does make a huge difference when you've got someone you can rely on to put the ball in the same area consistently. And you know the areas to attack. It's the most frustrating thing as a centre half if you're going up for set pieces and the first corner hits the first man, the second corner goes right over the back, and you're trudging back 70 yards to get back into position without ever having a sniff of goal. So to have that consistent quality delivery certainly makes a difference, and
that's interesting.
Makes a difference in league position at the end of the season, because set piece goals are so vital.
That's interesting you say that, because nowadays football has changed, isn't it? How the way you see, like Barcelona, they hardly put a corner in the box now. They're playing them short and trying to score that perfect goal. So if you've made a 70-yard run up the pitch to get in the box and you're not getting the ball in there, you're not going to be very happy, are you, really?
No, exactly. But I mean, Barcelona at that time, they could do whatever they wanted, really, couldn't they? And they probably didn't have the personnel to put the ball just into the box and try and win a header. I can think probably they had PK and maybe Puyol. I remember the time when they were playing in those short corners the majority of the time. So they've got 2 headers of the ball really in the team. So they weren't really going to score many goals percentage-wise from just sticking the ball in the box. Whereas obviously majority of players or squads in English football have fairly sizable targets that you can use. And we've shown in our league this year, Cheltenham got promoted. They scored 16 goals from long throws.
Monster throw, isn't he?
So they scored 16 goals. That's got them automatic promotion. So that's where I'm saying set pieces can make the difference between a successful season and a mediocre season.
But as you go up the leagues, will they be successful next season with that? Because obviously teams will know a little bit more about them, wouldn't they? It was like Delap, though, when he was at Stoke.
I was just about to say, you liken it to Rory Delap, and then it scares teams almost, and teams start kicking it for a corner rather than throwing, and it messes with people's mentalities. And it's definitely a weapon to be used if you have someone that can do that. So who knows if it's successful next season, but I'm sure they'll keep doing their best to make sure it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got Colin, who's a big Town fan. Colin, welcome in, my man.
Hello, Martin. How are you? Hi, Richard.
Very well, thank you.
Right.
Hi, Tommy. How are you?
Very well, thanks,
Hello.
Colin.
Okay. How are you?
Someone's got to stick up for me.
Yeah. No, it's lovely to speak to you, Tommy. First thing I'd like to say to you is, obviously, you've been a legend at the club, mate, and you've been a fantastic professional. I'd like to say that to you. And always adored by the fans. Always been a fans player, if you know what I mean. And I'd like to thank you for all the games and blood, sweat, and tears that you've produced for the club. You've been a great servant of the club, mate. And I must admit, when there was talk of you coming back, I was really, really praying he's going to come back, because you're such a good man and you're such a good pro. And I
really appreciate those kind words. Thank you very much.
That's no problem. One question I'd like to ask you is, it was kind of brought up in the chat a little while ago, I just noticed. What was your thoughts about, I know you were a great admirer of Mick, and I appreciate that and I respect that, but what was your thoughts about what he allegedly said to the fans?
So you're referring to the Norwich incident, just to be clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'd probably be the first to admit now, looking back at it, it probably wasn't the right thing to do. But in his situation, fans had been on his case, and I don't think it was so much a sort of, I can't repeat the words really, can I? But towards all the fans, I think it was just his release of being like showing the fans, yes, I can be successful, and sort of it came out in probably the wrong way. But
do you think, Tommy, that he was? Do you think he was frustrated because he sort of bore the brunt of that the owner wasn't sort of visible, and he was having to sort of, your loan players, your free transfers, and I think in the end he sort of bore that brunt, and he was getting it in the neck when it wasn't all down to the manager.
No, and I think obviously it's easy to say now, but since he's left the club, you can see what a good job he was doing on the budget that he was given to use. And I don't think anyone can say any different to that now in hindsight. And like you say, it probably was born out of frustration that people didn't quite know the full story of what was going on behind closed doors, and then what he had to work with budget-wise. And I mean, to be fair, there's no disrespect to Marcus or whatever, because he was a businessman and he kept the club running and didn't lose any money for the club in that regard. And now it probably was time for Marcus to move on as well, and at the time it was probably time for Mick to move on because that relationship had become so fractious with the fans. It probably was the right time to move on. But then, like I say, with hindsight, you probably think maybe that was the wrong decision at the time.
Another thing I'd like to ask you, Tommy, is obviously, you're Town through and through. We know that. Are you like us? Are you very excited about the prospects of the club going forward as regards the new ownership, and also with my friend Mr. Sheeran on board?
Yeah, obviously it's a very exciting time. Anytime a club gets taken over by new owners, they come in with fresh ideas and obviously ambition with what they want to do with the club. And obviously it's no different this time around. They're saying all the right things, and hopefully, obviously, again, there's going to be a massive turnover of player, and the squad is going to look totally different next season. And you just hope that they can get the right personnel through the door to make a real good go at promotion next season. But I think it's refreshing for the whole club to have that new ownership, and it will get the fans back behind the club that had maybe sort of been wavering, and obviously will have a big impact on those. The excitement that comes with having that new ownership and ambitious ownership can only be a benefit for the club, hopefully.
Are you taking your badges at the moment, Tommy? Would you ever think about coming back to the club? If and when you take your badges on coaching young youths, or say the
yeah, I mean, obviously I will always have an affinity and feeling towards the club, and if I can help the club in any way moving forward once my playing career ends, then obviously that's something that I would love to do. I still live in Ipswich. I follow the results. I've still got friends that play for the club, so I'm a big follower of the club, and I keep in contact with people throughout the club, not just playing wise, but staff behind the scenes as well. So it's certainly something that potentially, I don't know if I want to be a coach yet. I haven't thought that far ahead. I will get my coaching badges, but I sort of haven't really got myself into a place where I think, I definitely want to do that when I finish playing. At the moment, the main focus for me is to carry on playing for as long as I possibly can.
Yeah. And how many shots did you give Luke, and how many did you beat him by?
Yeah. Well, he's not a bad golfer, but no, I did come off the victor on Monday. I only by a point on Stapleford, but it was nice to get out and socialise again. Obviously, after so long with these lockdowns, it's nice just to be able to go out and have a round of golf. So yeah.
And the taxi home, I suggest.
No drinks were consumed.
It's the Colin show. It's just taken over. Colin, I love you. I do love you. Come on,
I love you, man. I love you, man. And Richard. Oh, and by the way, Rich, the roulade was absolutely unreal.
Did you save any? Is there any left over?
Nah.
Colin, I love you. I love you, man. Look after yourself. Thank you for coming on.
Okay, I love you, Tommy. Bye-bye.
Take care, Colin. Thank you.
ITFC Tweedy, what was your relationship with Chris Wood like when he played for us, Tommy?
Well, when he was on loan with us, he lived with me, so I'm still good friends with him now. So no, he's obviously gone on to have an absolutely fantastic career. He's flying again this season. I think he's got 12 Premier League goals for Burnley, who aren't renowned goal scorers. So I think I saw a stat as well the other day. He's scored 10 plus goals in the Premier League for 4 seasons in a row now, and I think there's only 10 players that have done that. So he's in good company in that regard, and like I say, he's worked his socks off to get to the position he's in now, and he's reaping the rewards of that.
That's a shame when he came here, because he wasn't really fit, was he? I don't think so.
No,
and Darryl Murphy was obviously on fire, wasn't he? So he didn't really get much of a look in.
He came in, he needed games really. Leicester sent him out on loan, but he came to us carrying an injury. And I remember at the time our physio said if he was our player, he wouldn't be training, let alone playing. So he was of that mindset though, that he wanted to play football, and obviously probably at that time was probably a little bit detrimental to himself, because he didn't perhaps produce the football that we know he's capable of now. And unfortunately, he ended up getting recalled anyway, so we never really got to see the best of him. Just as he was getting himself fitter and fitter, he got called back. So, but he's gone on to kick on, obviously, and has had a fantastic career with hopefully many more years left in him of scoring goals in the Premier League.
Well, have you got any regrets from the 14-15 season? Because obviously we touched on your goal at Brentford on Boxing Day when we went top of the league then, didn't we? And then we only just made it in the playoffs there at Blackburn. Sort of, you know what happened last day. Derby lost at home, and if they'd have got a point, I think we wouldn't have made it. So, do you have any regrets of that season? Because we were quite close, I think, to getting in the Premier League.
I mean, from a personal point of view, no regrets really. But obviously, you look at that Norwich away game where I think we had them on the ropes, and their crowd had started to turn.
Yeah, definitely.
And then obviously, unfortunately, Christoph gets sent off, and it changes the whole complex of the game and the dynamic of the game. But we felt before that moment, we felt in the ascendancy and thought that we're going to go in and win this. But obviously, a big moment like that changes the game, and unfortunately, it wasn't to be. But we thought then that we can kick on again next season, but obviously it didn't transpire, unfortunately. So,
but that was a great season, wasn't it? Because everyone was really together then, like players, manager, fans. Look at the games like Charlton away, the last-minute winner. Obviously, Watford away, and you see the scenes. You can look on YouTube, everyone piling over there at the end, and it was a fantastic season. And I just personally, I've said for a long time, I think we were probably in January with a couple of players I think would have made all the difference, and it could have pushed us over the line.
Yeah, and then probably we're a victim of our own success there because we were top of the league at the time. So maybe the owner thought, well, why do I need to pump more money into it if we're already top of the league? You know, I mean, I said it again. He's running a business at the end of the day, and if he doesn't think it makes financial sense to do these deals, then he's not going to do it, which is his prerogative, you know. And different owners have different mindset over these sorts of things. But yeah, I mean, we'll never know now, but you do just have that sort of sense that if we did maybe bring another striker in to help Murph along with maybe chipping in with another few goals or another creative player, you never know. But for me personally, no regrets. We gave our absolute all as a squad and just came up short, unfortunately.
It was a great journey, wasn't it? It was one of those journeys where it was just, where is this going to take us? And as fans and as a club, we were, for the first time I can actually remember, really together, really sort of singing from the same hymn sheet. It was us against the world, which I know McCarthy sort of preached that as a mindset, really, didn't he, Tommy? You know, that siege mentality. He really wanted that. But Jordan asks, what made you move to America? Because for me as a fan, that sort of came out of nowhere. And at the time, I remember thinking, I don't want Tommy to go to America. I think he's got a future still here. Were there offers from England at the time?
Well, it sort of only came about because my New Zealand manager, my New Zealand head coach, had moved to the Colorado Rapids. I hadn't been in the team at Ipswich Town. I'd just come off the back of my back injury. Mick McCarthy, he didn't want me to go. Like he said, I'm not forcing you out the door, but this offer has come in for you. Would you like to consider it? You know, I'm not trying to get rid of you. He did emphasise that. I know some people have probably thought that he sort of pushed me out the door. It was never the case. You know, he gave me the option, but myself in my mindset, I wanted to play football, and he made it clear to me that I was no longer in his first choice centre-back partnership. So for me, it's sort of that was the driver for me to go and get regular football again. And it came about very early on, really. The interest started probably in about October, November time. So I hadn't really given any thought to other offers, to be quite honest. And at the time, with less games in the MLS, obviously my body, I didn't know if my body could take 46 game season anymore at that moment in time. I know now, obviously, having come back and played a full season now, that I perhaps could have stayed and maybe stayed in England. But at the time, you know, discussing it with friends, family and everything, they said this could be an opportunity to prolong your career in terms of not taking that hammering with a 46 game season. And like I said, I had a couple of New Zealand teammates that were going to the Rapids. I had the former manager and a few more staff that were heading over there. And having discussed it with him and the exciting opportunity that was, and for myself and my wife at the time, we had no children at the time, and it was one of those that the life experience that we'll get from having a couple of years in America was something that we couldn't turn down in the end. And no regrets again about going over there. I enjoyed it. Again, perhaps not as successful on the pitch as we would have liked as a team, but got myself back playing regularly, which is what I was needed to do at that point in my career. And yeah, so that was the reason we went over there in the end.
You know, a Broncos fan?
I went to a couple of games, but I think they won one. I went within the space of 3 weeks. I went to one that was the coldest game on record. 3 weeks later, it was the hottest game on record. It was crazy, or it might have been the other way around. But the best part of the NFL games are the tailgate parties for me.
Yeah, big time, absolutely. Kate, are you with us again? You keep coming, you keep going, you keep freezing.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, if you can hear me, I can hear you. So I just wanted to know, so looking ahead to next season, Tommy, you're obviously in the know. You know so many people in the industry, more than we do. Who should Town be looking at? Who would Town be a good fit for?
Put it on me there, aren't you? I don't know. Obviously Paul Cook's come in and he will have his own targets in mind. I think he said he wants championship quality players. So obviously I saw the link with Luton Town's captain there today, and if they can get that caliber of player in, then that's fantastic. But I think it is going to be a tough summer for a lot of clubs. Every club is going to want the best squad they can assemble, obviously. So there will be players that a lot of clubs are fighting to sign at the same time, and it will be probably a big signal of where the club's ownership is at in terms of the players that do come through the door initially and the ambition that they're going to show. But for me personally, I don't know. Players obviously will look. There's lots of different factors that come into why players want to sign for certain clubs. It's not just a face value. I want to go and play football. Players with families have that to consider. If they've got kids in schools, wherever they are, a lot of factors come into deciding what football team to sign for. That's why on paper, a lot of things that happen, you think, he had the option to go here, but he didn't. He went there instead. And these all go on behind the scenes, these decisions. And so it'll be tough. The geographical location of Ipswich can sometimes be a hindrance for players' decisions in wanting to come out here. But I think you probably talk to most players that have signed for Ipswich. Once they have come here, they don't want to leave. A lot of them, it's such a nice place, nice part of the country to live. The weather's so mild compared to other parts of the country, and obviously it's a fantastic place to play your football. The stadium, the pitch, the training facilities are all probably within the top 2 or 3 in the league. Definitely. Obviously you've got a couple of other big clubs in there that have similar facilities, but that should be an attraction for players, and hopefully that Ipswich do get those players through the door that can be a real driving force behind the promotion bid.
Did you play against Scott Twine when he was at Newport?
Yeah, he scored against us. He scored one of his, not quite as good as the goal at Portman Road, but
cool. That was a goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, he scored one from about 25 yards against us, and we ended up losing 2-1. So, has he been mentioned, has he? Or...
Yeah, I think he's been linked, but I think there's a lot of clubs after him.
Only by him, Tommy. He absolutely loves him. He says you can't guess. He gets him in every single conversation.
He got about 13, 14 goals for Newport. He was on loan running before Christmas, and then even at Swindon, they got relegated, but he's still got a few goals. He can score from score from long range. I think he's a really good player. And I think he'll make the step up. Probably Town, but there'll probably be a lot of teams I think looking at him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, he's a good player, but like you say, that these sorts of players, a lot of clubs are going to be interested in, and it will show the draw of the new owners is probably going to be a big thing as well. That players will look at that and think, I want to go and be a part of the plan that they've got moving forward. And like I say, it's an exciting time, but you just want to get those first couple of players over the line to just see where that squad will be headed.
Absolutely right. Let's bring a couple more fans in. Let's bring Callie in first. Callie, we're going to run through it as quick as we can, obviously, for time.
Yeah. How we doing?
How are you, my man?
All right. I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good.
good,
How are we
man.
all?
Yeah, we're good, thank you.
Excellent,
You're on.
excellent. Tommy, I actually think we met a few times, Tommy, anyway, through Lee.
Yeah.
Good old Colombo. Just a quick question. It's not really Ipswich related. But okay, yesterday we saw the first player of South Asian heritage in Hamza Chowdhury win the FA Cup. So there's a few more. There's a lot of South Asian players at grassroots. We're not seeing them break through, but at New Zealand you've got Sarpreet Singh, who's obviously at Bayern Munich as well. What are your thoughts on him, and do you think he's got what it takes to kind of be the kind of poster child for, say, South Asian footballers for the next generation?
Yeah, fantastic football. Obviously, you don't get to sign for Bayern Munich unless you're extremely talented. And he's one of the stars of the New Zealand team at the moment. And it's fantastic for him to be able to be on a platform to, like you say, to inspire the next generation of South Asian footballers to show them that there is a pathway and to get to the very top. And hopefully he will carry on setting a good example, and hopefully he can break in and be a regular in that Bayern Munich team as the sort of poster boy for that route, and in educating players and encouraging them to be able to do the same pathway.
Cheers, man.
Absolutely. Callie, love you, man. Love you, man. Keep well.
Guys.
In the know, Callie Bisner there.
Nice to speak to you, Callie.
Yeah, he's in the know, is our Callie, Tommy. The fisherman, Mike Brown. Now, this can go anyway, Tommy. This could go either way. So just, I've got the mute button ready and waiting. We'll get our award-winning pro back, first of all.
Thanks.
The referee of proceedings. Go on, Mike.
I just don't know where I get this reputation from. That's just uncalled for. I'm sweet and innocent. I do anything. No, anyway. Last time I saw you, Tommy, was the Players' Night in 2012 when you actually won Player of the Season. I think that was that first season Mick McCarthy was at the club.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and I have to say, you're really humble as a player. I will give you that. You are real humble as a player. Meeting with the fans, mixing with the fans, and it was good. It was nice to see. Shame one or two others at that Players' Night weren't so.
There's a compliment in there somewhere, Tommy. There's a real big compliment in there somewhere. You just got to wade through the weeds to get to it.
My question is, we as Ipswich fans, as you probably know, we've had a bit of a torrid season. Yeah. And my biggest gripe in the last maybe couple of 3 years is the effort on the pitch. When you see, teams like Leicester, who not necessarily have the world-class players, but they work so hard for each other, and they work so with so much passion and so much effort, regardless whether they're, and they're competing against teams that have got world-class players. Ipswich this year, every time we played, it's looked like we played in first gear. We've not even got out of first gear. What causes players to actually start that process in their mind and think, we go out and then for the first 10 minutes give it everything, and then for the rest of the game kind of switch off? And do you understand what I'm saying, Tommy?
Yeah, and what I will say is I don't think there's ever a player that doesn't try, but there's a lot of factors that go in behind the dynamic of a football club, and if players aren't getting on with the manager, and if they aren't getting on with each other, if there's no harmony within the group, that can all have an effect. And it can all, from an outside perspective looking in, it can look like some individuals may not be trying as hard as others, but I don't think you'd ever find, I've never come across it where, as a player myself, I've never accused anyone of not trying in a game of football. But things just sometimes look fractious and sort of dislocated on the pitch. And that can be for a variety of reasons. And I think Paul Lambert, I don't know if he'd lost the dressing room, but I think there was maybe some evidence of that players weren't perhaps adhering to what he wanted. And then, it was all a bit fractured. And that can sort of come across as maybe the players aren't trying. But for me, that's never really, I could never have levelled that at anyone during my playing time. And I don't think that would have been the case. But I understand why and how it can come across that way from a fan point of view sometimes.
Yeah. Is it a team mentality because of meetings, scout reports, anything like that? Because obviously when you go a goal up normally, you see it in a lot of teams. They immediately sort of mentally park the handbrake, and the back line goes 10 yards deeper, and then they get deeper and deeper in a game. Is that because of meetings and you're told to be aware of certain players? So psychologically, you may be thinking, well, he's on the pitch now, we've got to worry about this, worry about that.
I think something like that comes with confidence as well. If you're not on such a good run, I've experienced that this season. We went on a terrible run, and then there's been games where goals up in, and just sort of subconsciously you find yourselves getting that deeper, inviting more and more pressure, and then the more you do that, inevitably the team are going to get more chances, and more often than not they nick a goal towards the end. And you have to, it's a confidence thing, definitely, but it also comes from strong leadership from the side as well, that you need to be confident in your ability. You're 1-0 up in the game for a reason, and you're ahead in games for reasons, and you need to stick to your game plans. And it is easier said than done, because football is, as much as it's a physical game, it's a mental game, and you all need to be on the same page and have that confidence in each other as well, not just in your own ability. You have to trust your teammates and trust in their abilities, and that's again where we hark back to that playoff year. You could hold your hat on the person next to you to produce 7 out of 10 every single week. You knew what you were going to get. And yes, sometimes we came up short in games, but it was never through lack of effort and desire and togetherness. And we sometimes just came up against better teams. And that's why when you feel like you're the better team, obviously Ipswich Town should not be finishing mid-table in League One. We all know that. And especially with the quality of players they've had. But that can sometimes happen, and when that togetherness and cohesiveness isn't there, and that's where now obviously new leadership's come in right from the very top. Paul Cook will get his own players in, and you've seen in his previous teams like the Wiggins, every job he's had, he's been successful in. So hopefully he can get that cohesion and everyone pulling in the same direction, which was what got us success under Mick, and hopefully we can see that culminating in a promotion.
Cheers, mate.
When you go back to that team, Tommy, in 14-15, you got players like, you had Paul Anderson, didn't you? Stephen Hunt, Jay Tab. And look, they might not have been, no disrespect to them, but there was probably better players in the league in other teams, but they absolutely worked their arses off, didn't they? You knew what they brought to the team, and they all bought into that. And it was like, you go to like the Watford game away, for instance, when we went there and we won 1-0. Watford probably... Yeah, that was a great game. It wasn't the best performance, but we dug in that day, didn't we? And then hung in the game. And obviously, the bald eagle, as I called him, it was that. What a moment that was, Tommy. It was like, that was probably one of my best away days for Town. When you score in the 94th minute and there's no comeback for the opposition, it was just absolute carnage, wasn't it?
Oh, brilliant. I remember all the inflatables going everywhere. And it was, I remember... I think it was Stephen Hunt had gone off with cramp or some sort of injury.
He sprinted down the line, didn't he?
Yeah.
We scored.
Then afterwards, we've looked back at the video. We're like, "You've just gone off injured. What's this all about?" Like that. But that's obviously the feeling of euphoria that you get, and you just you lose all inhibition in those celebrations, and it was brilliant. Yeah, like you say, that time of the fans, the players, the management, that the whole club was as one, and it was a brilliant time for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. We had a few of those moments, didn't we, Charlton? We had it was a good season, really exciting season. World Cup wise, you came so close. I don't think people realise how close you came in your group to qualify into the knockouts. You took Italy to the wire.
Only unbeaten country at that World Cup.
It's pub quiz time.
It must be maybe a regret is a big word, but almost a regret where you look at that table now and you think, we came so close to just going into the lottery. And
again, we knew going into the last group game that if we won, we would get through. And a tinge of regret that we didn't perhaps go for it a little bit earlier than we did in terms of trying to get that goal. Because obviously our game plan for every game was keep it as solid as we can for as long as we can, and then hope to sort of nick counter-attacks. Because obviously we weren't the best team in the group. We were, on paper, no one would have given us a prayer of getting out of the group. It's amazing to think we finished above Italy in that group, who were world champions at the time. So, a small tinge of regret for not quite giving it a go early enough to maybe put some pressure on Paraguay and get through, because they only needed a point. But still, obviously, to have said we were unbeaten at the World Cup is fantastic. And it was a brilliant journey the whole way through.
Yeah, and internationally.
Tommy,
go on. Sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry. I remember interviewing you, and I remember you letting on how much the international travel was just killing your back. I was just going to say, do you miss those international trips at all? Because obviously, like, you have the physical implications of all that travel, and I guess when you play for a country like New Zealand, you're going that much further than, say, the England lads or the Irish lads.
Well, I certainly don't miss the actual travelling aspect. Sitting on a plane for 24 hours is never ideal, but I do miss the games and the opportunities and the experience that those games have provided me, you know. And hopefully, I mean, the last fixture we had was November 2019. Since then, we haven't been able to have any fixtures because of COVID. So, and I was in that squad. So who knows? Hopefully, I can retain my place in the squad for whenever our games start up again, because it's certainly another one which is an absolute honour to represent my country. And I would love to add to the number of caps that I have got and give it another crack at getting to another World Cup. So I don't know. They're still up in the air about when our qualifiers are going to be because of the whole travel situation at the minute. So New Zealand isn't really letting anyone in unless you go into a quarantine period, which are booked up.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that, having done that with a baby.
Yeah, but that was tough. But yeah, who knows? Who knows when our fixtures will? They're talking about potentially January. I think FIFA, they're talking about making a new international window for January just to get all the qualifiers done, because obviously next year is the World Cup. So teams that haven't been able to play need to play their qualifiers to get their representatives there.
How do you think that'll go in Qatar, Tommy? Because obviously the climate over there is going to be a little bit warm, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll be a tough one. But I think they're talking about air-conditioned stadiums and things, aren't they? But I don't know how that will all work at the time. But it'll certainly be a completely different World Cup to one that's ever been before. Again, it'll probably be a fantastic experience for those that are lucky enough to play that, not just play there, but go and experience it as a fan as well. But it will be strange having a World Cup at that time of a year. You know, I don't know how that will impact on the domestic leagues just yet, but it'll be a strange one for sure.
So going off the climate, just a question, do you think they've gone on about this before? Do you think that plays into the hands of like an African nation? Because they've always said, haven't they, could an African nation win the World Cup? And obviously playing in Qatar, they're going to benefit from that more than sort of anybody.
Well, I suppose if countries are more accustomed to the conditions that the games are being played in, then for sure. I remember one that stands out for me was we played Mexico in a World Cup playoff match at the Azteca Stadium, and they only picked players that played at altitude, the Mexico squad. So they left out superstars like Hernandez, Vela, Dos Santos at the time, and only picked players that were playing at altitude and used to playing at altitude. And they ended up beating us 5-1 because we were not used to it. And so that was our thing done. So yeah, conditions and being used to certain conditions will definitely give those sorts of teams an advantage going into it for sure.
Wow. Yeah. Crunch. There you go. See, I never thought about that. I've got to be honest. I just you just assume you're going to rock up and.
What was it like playing at the Azteca Stadium? Because that's like one of the. I always remember that from Mexico. You weren't born then, Tommy. Mexico '86. I always remember Terry Butcher trying to tackle Maradona, and it was like massive. What's that old 90,000? Was that full when you played?
I think it was 110,000. Yeah, full of screaming. Like the atmosphere at that place was obviously towards us. It was like a really toxic, like that you could tell that they were baying for blood almost. Obviously, desperate for their team to get through. Probably thought that their team shouldn't be in the World Cup playoff scenario in the first place. They should have been automatically through. So a really good experience until we lost 5-1.
Got a question about your time in New Zealand, Tommy, about how how and why you stood out so much at that young age level with your football. Was it like a Christian Pulisic situation, and that your parents were very much into football, and so you had a head start in England, and then obviously you stood out in New Zealand?
Yeah, definitely. Before we emigrated to New Zealand, I was part of the Crew Alexandra Academy. So I was in the under-9s at Crew before we emigrated to New Zealand, which obviously gave me that little taste of what a footballer could potentially go on to do. And I mean, even at that young age, I knew all I wanted to be was a footballer. And at that time, it was a very different sort of football landscape in New Zealand. It was nowhere near the #1 sport, whereas now, for young players, it is the #1 most participated sport in the country, above rugby, cricket, which sort of 10, 15 years ago, you would have never dreamed of that being the case. So it was a strange one, but yeah, my dad was always a sort of driving factor behind me. We always did extras, just one-on-one sessions, trying to get that little 1%ers in that make your improvements. And that was always one of them. I was always playing above my own age group, so always testing myself physically against bigger kids, which probably stood me in good stead as well. And then that just got to the point where for high school, the region we lived in initially was not a very good football area, really. So when I reached high school age, there was a couple of schools that had football programs alongside the education. So we moved up to Auckland specifically to go to this school where one lesson a day was your football.
Wow.
So that obviously probably gave me that extra little bit again to keep improving at the rate that I was, and culminated in there was a community centre coach that was out there on holiday, really, but had a good relationship with Malcolm Moore, who was head of recruitment at Ipswich Town at the time. And he recommended to Malcolm Moore that I come over to Ipswich for a trial. So it was one of them that right place, right time, where the opportunity presented itself. And I remember first coming over to Ipswich as a 14-year-old, made the journey from New Zealand on my own as a 14-year-old, turned up at, my sister actually never emigrated to New Zealand with me, my oldest sister. She picked me up and brought me up to Ipswich. And I remember Sally Williams, who still works for the club to this day, was the first face I saw. And from that moment on, I knew that the club was going to look after me. You know, she brought me in, made sure I was all right, introduced me to everyone. You know, just that's a testament to the club as well, where you have people like that at the club that look after people and treat you as one of their own, even though I was just a 14-year-old on trial that might have been out the door 2 weeks later. So, brilliant experience, and one that I'll never forget.
Brilliant. Crunch.
I've got one last question. It's not football related. Do you know the hacker? Have you ever done it, Tommy?
Yeah, I've done it as my initiation. The last couple of clubs I've been at now. But no, obviously it's something that means a lot to New Zealanders, and you certainly take pride in it. It's one of those things that you can't do half-heartedly. You have to give your all, and you have to get into the right headspace of doing it. And I think I saw the video. I was tagged in a couple of New Zealanders have done it for Phoenix as their initiations, and I did it for Sunderland, and I've done it for Colchester as well. So it's something that obviously it raises awareness of the culture of New Zealand, but it's also a brilliant way to sort of introduce yourself to your fellow squad members in doing that for your initiation.
There you go.
Brilliant.
Right. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Help us enjoy in growing. Kate, thank you for arranging today's interview. Tommy, it's been a real pleasure. It really, truly has. But thank you, and good luck for next season, unless you're playing Town, and then no luck. No luck.
No, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and good luck for everyone for next season. Let's hope that we can both be celebrating promotions.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Cheers, Tom.